My name is Marie. I am from Mali in West Africa. I am a student here at UVU studying political science with a concentration on international relations and 2 minors, one in peace and justice and the other one in languages, French and Spanish. First of all, I would like to thank all of the wonderful people and departments that helped in putting this event together. Special thanks to the International Student Council, known as ISC. Special thanks to the Women's Success Center, to UVU Student Association, known as UVUSA, to the International Affairs and Diplomacy Office, to the Multicultural Center, to the Foreign Affairs Club, and to every single person who helped in putting this event together. Also, I would like to thank all of you for your presence and support of women. Today, we are celebrating our mothers, wives, sisters, cousins, daughters, and friends. Today, we are celebrating women. We know that the International Women's Day is not celebrated in the United States as it is in many different countries, such as Russia or Mali, my country. But still, we wanted to do something that would represent women around the world. Today is a big day for women in many African countries, including Mali, my beloved country. Today in Mali, women are not going to work, but they're still getting paid. They are enjoying their womanhood, and they're enjoying being women. Usually in Mali, on the International Women's Day, the government recognizes women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of the country and the community. The government organizes different activities, including festivals and lectures for women, just to show them how special and important they are, how beautiful they are, both inside and outside. In Mali, it is a tradition to design every year a special cloth for the International Women's Day. And all of the women get to wear the same fabric to go to the different activities. So the International Women's Day is a big day, not only in Mali, but in many other countries. Without further ado, we're gonna start our program for today. And I would like to leave the floor for Anne Werepo, the director of the Women's Success Center, for the introduction of our award receiver today and for the presentation of the award. Ladies and gentlemen, Anne.
Marie has done so much work. If I could have 1 million students like her, we could rule the world. She is really amazing. Thank you, Marie, for your efforts. And there is pizza back there. Don't forget to go and get a few bites. But this is such an exciting day, and thank you for joining our celebration on International Women's Day. What an honor to stand before you today. As Aung San Suu said, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, leader of Burma's democracy movement, the education and empowerment of women throughout the world cannot fail to result in a more caring, more tolerant, just and peaceful life for all. Mother Teresa says, "Alone I cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." And we know that that is important as women are raising up the idea of peace. I'd like to share with you a quick video about what's happening throughout the world and what women are doing to bring that forward.
There's never been a better time to be a woman.
It's a new birth, and in this birth, women take the lead.
Women are becoming the primal power person.
La próxima revolución probablemente venga de las mujeres, de la pasión por vivir.
Any woman who knows how to run a household knows how to run a world.
Men cannot heal the patriarchy, but women and men together good.
What a real man does. He stokes the flame of the feminine. He stokes the radiance of the feminine. He lets her be everything she can be, and she is the power source of the universe.
We have to give new tools, a new vocabulary, allowing space for emotions and communication, and also supporting young women in finding their voice and speaking their truth.
If men raise children as much as women do, that awakens in men the nurturing that is in all human beings, and it allows boys and girls to see that men can be as loving and nurturing.
It's been so imbalanced in the role of leadership that the masculine is all the way up here. Even with a lot of women politicians, suddenly the feminine is beginning to rise.
What leadership is calling for now is a whole integrated individual that comes from the heart and the soul and knows that it is better for our society than what we've been doing so far.
We want to help transform the world because otherwise the children won't survive. Otherwise our biosphere will collapse.
People are fascinated by the archetype of the Titanic because we're on it. We are headed to the iceberg. So what we have to do is turn around the Titanic in time. We have to turn around, and we have to turn around now.
We have to take back our power and say no to war.
It's all about remembering peace and love.
Women are the growing edge of our species right now. They are going to fix the world.
Not anymore.
I hope you could hear the power. Yeah, there's some strong feelings in that film, and I wanted to bring your attention to two of the things that were said there. Right in the middle, it said, what leadership is calling for now is a whole integrated individual that comes from the heart and soul and knows that it is better for our society than what we have been doing so far. So that heart and soul is a really important thing, and I think there's somebody right here on our campus who is such a leader, who is a whole integrated leader that comes from the heart and the soul. And as you see that feminine start to rise, I think you start to see the need for the feminine leadership. So let's talk about the Rainmaker Award today for outstanding service and advanced advocacy for all UVU women. A Rainmaker is a person whose influence can initiate progress and ensure success. They're usually a key figure in the organization, a principal or executive who is highly regarded within the enterprise. In business, a Rainmaker is a person who brings new accounts almost by magic. They generate substantial cash flow from sources outside established channels, connecting people in non-traditional or hidden markets. Now, the origin of Rainmaker may be an allusion to the Native American practice of dancing to encourage deities to bring forth the rain necessary for crops. In summertime droughts, the Rainmaker would dance and sing, and the activity was believed by others in the tribe to magically cause clouds to come and bring the life-giving rain. At a university, the role of the Rainmaker would be to bring contrasting stakeholders together, open doors for new funding, create innovative paradigms, and ensure the success of the venture. Our award winner has accomplished all these things for UVU women and more. Vice President Michelle Taylor has opened many doors through grant writing, scholarships, creative funding, etc. She had a vision for the Women's Success Center and has tirelessly strived to bring it into reality. She's endorsed women in STEM and promoted opportunities for growth in that area. She's worked with many challenging students and challenging administrators. She's mentored many professional females and males as well as students. She's advocated for students, and she's been a shining example of professional women in the university's C-suite, which is a very important thing. We also know that she has endorsed WISP and that she has helped philanthropist Doris Buffett, who has awarded scholarships for survivors of domestic violence. Michelle has also been recruiting internationally and internationally through many challenging times. She's had the vision of the We Care Center and guided its progress forward. Michelle wears a hard hat to work every day. She has to endure a lot, but we have a lot of fun with her, and as a colleague, I can tell you that it's a wonderful experience to work with Vice President Michelle Taylor. Michelle has truly weathered many personal setbacks and professional challenges, but she is a survivor and is somebody that has accomplished so much in her life. Perhaps reminiscent of Marie Curie, that famous Polish scientist who wrote about her personal life. I have frequently been questioned, especially by women, of how I could reconcile life with a scientific career. Well, it has not been easy. Life is not easy for any of us, but what of that? We must have perseverance, and above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something and that this thing must be attained. Michelle simply smiles and she says, "We are all the walking wounded." But most importantly, she keeps walking and encourages others to walk along with her. There is so much good in the world to be accomplished, and much of it begins inside. Michelle has an inner peace and a sense of gratitude. Like Helen Keller profoundly learned, what I am looking for is not out there, it is in me. We are all agreed beauty is not to be found in a dress size or a skin color, but rather our inscape. As writer Gerard Manley Hopkins says, our distinctive pattern and the individuality inside each of us is in our inscape. True beauty is in the core of a person, the essence. Quoting John Keats, beauty is truth. Truth is beauty. That is all. Michelle is beautiful, inside and out. Michelle has the inner peace and knows how to see and grow the beauty in the world, and right here at home on our Utah Valley University campus. It is clear that Rainmaker Michelle Taylor sees more for the future of women at this university and in the world. It is a great honor to present the Rainmaker Award for Outstanding Service and Advanced Advocacy for all UVU women to Vice President Michelle Taylor. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you. We do have a little award, and we'll just maybe have you take a look. There's a little globe. She can throw this so nobody make her mad. Beautiful. And then, sorry, Marie. If you want to hold up, Adonica, of course, is responsible for the beautiful flowers, and we're so grateful to you, Adonica, for that. It's a wonderful thing to have these things, and we'll put them in your office, and hopefully it will brighten that place up. And this is a book that we made to say thank you, and so it's wonderful to have Michelle be a part of us, and we hope you know how much that we love you.
Thank you for all of the things you've done for us. Thank you.
Okay, and I will get your slide. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So you have the slide clicker?
You just look at me and I'll click for you.
Okay, just checking. First of all, thank you so much for this award. It's a deeply personal award for me, and so when Anne asked me to make some remarks, and when she told me about the award, I thought, oh, this is like the Oscars, you get a minute and a half. And she said, no, you get 15 to 20 minutes. Wow, okay. So as I thought about what I wanted to say, I really thought about my parents. I wish they could be here today. My dad is ill, and my mother takes care of him, and he won't let anyone else take care of him but her. So she's stuck. She can't even get a neighbor to help her. And so they couldn't be here today, but I want to dedicate this award to them, and I want to tell you a little bit about why I feel like it's so important to dedicate this award to them. So this is my family. I'm the little one there, and I have two older brothers, and then my dad and my mom. My dad is an interesting person. He's someone that works very, very hard, and he plays very, very hard. I got that from him. And one of the things that he loves to do, that he would love to do, is he loved adventure. So he always had a motorcycle, he always had his fishing pole, he had a surfboard on the top of a little VW van in Utah. And people would say, why, your dad is kind of weird, why does he have a surfboard on his VW van? And I'd always say, well, he says that he never knows when he might need it. And my dad actually did the paddle boards before that was invented. And he worked for the railroad. And when he first started working for the railroad, he had a young family, and those people that were new to the railroad, you had to have your vacation in January. If you'd been there for 20 years or 30 years, you get the summer. So my dad had his vacation in January. So when January came, he'd fix up this little VW bus thing, and away we'd go to Mexico for a couple of weeks. We started with a week, and then it was 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and we camped out in Mexico for 3 weeks every January. And it just seemed like the most natural thing in the world to do. And then he had to have a surfboard there, because if the surf was up, we had to stop so that he could go surfing. So I'm just telling you this so that you know a little bit about him. Another thing about my dad is that when I was younger, even just some of my earliest memories, he would say to me, "You're going to college." And I would say, "Why am I going to college?" And he would say, "Because technology is changing so quickly that you've got to be able to learn how to learn in order to navigate this world." Well, I didn't understand what that meant when I was a little girl. I just thought, my dad's really weird. And but he worked for the railroad. He started with a steam engine, and he would shovel the coal into the fire. There were 2 or 3 shovelers, and they'd shovel the coal to create the steam to do the train. It was hot and dirty and difficult work, dangerous work. It would be so hot, there's no air conditioning. It'd be so hot that they'd have to take turns going up to the top of the train, running to the water tanks, jumping in the water tanks, coming out, and then shoveling again. And he talked about how the technology was changing every single year. The technology was changing on the trains. Every single year he was having to learn something new and different. And he kept saying to me, he gave me this advice when I was a very small child, and I want to give you this advice because I feel like it's the same today as it was back then. And the advice was, when you start working in the work field, you're going to be working with technology that hasn't been invented yet. And he was so right. And he would say, you need that college education so that you can problem solve, so you can learn how to learn, so that when you get to that place, you can adapt and change to anything that comes your way. Well, that's true, and that has become very true for me. When I went to high school, we didn't have a computer in my high school. I had a typewriter in college. I remember my first job, we had a computer, and it was like, okay, I better learn this tonight. And that's just the way it's been. And so when I was a freshman in college, I had no idea that I would be working with a relational database. We hadn't even heard about those. I mean, Steve Jobs was still inventing that in his garage. And so what I'm saying is that education matters. It matters no matter what. You need it no matter what, because you will be a lifelong learner. And if you can learn how to learn, you can make it no matter what is happening around you or how the technology is changing. So that was the first piece of advice that I wanted to pass on to you. The second thing that my dad tried very hard to teach me is that how lucky I was, what a privileged life I had. And as a child, I was a very willful child. If I didn't get my way, I would throw tantrums, and I was a screamer and a kicker. I was a biter. I hate to admit that, but I was. And I remember my mom going, I don't know what to do with her. And at the time, Dr. Spock was big then, and he said, you spank them, and you spank them hard. But my parents didn't agree with that philosophy. And they were just like, what do we do with this child? She's so out of control. Anyway, so I would say things like, for my birthday, I wanted certain things. And 1968, my life completely changed. Now, I know this was before any of you were born. But this was a banner year for me, and I'll tell you why. Okay, and you can do the next one. Okay, Easy Bake Ovens came out that year, and it was awesome. You still have yours? I saved mine too. It was the best. But when my birthday came around, I needed an Easy Bake Oven, and I told my dad, I need an Easy Bake Oven. It was so cool, it was green. A light bulb went in there. You could cook brownies, cookies, they had all these cool little things you could cook. And my friends all had their Easy Bake Ovens. It said Susie Homemaker on the front. I wanted that Easy Bake Oven. When my birthday came, I did not get it. I was very, very upset. I screamed and cried the whole day. And I said to my dad, I took his chin in my hand and said, you don't understand. I need my Easy Bake Oven. He said, no, you want your Easy Bake Oven. Well, that's not all I wanted. I wanted, you can go ahead and turn the next one, Betty Big Doll. She was awesome. She's 32 inches. She fits right on the Easy Bake Oven. There's a brunette and there's a blonde. I needed the blonde with the hazel eyes. And she had a cord in the back. She talked. Dad, I have to have Betty Big Doll. I have to have her. We're having a party. My friends were having a party. They all had their Easy Bake Ovens and they all had their Betty Big Dolls. And I didn't have mine. Now, how am I going to go to a party without mine? And he said, that's a need, not a want. Well, it just frustrated me. And when my friends would come in the house, I would tell them, ignore my dad, do not make eye contact. But he would snare them in. He would say, what are the two luckiest girls doing in the world today? Why do you think they're so lucky? And my friend Angela would always fall for it. I don't know, why? Because you have running water. You are the luckiest girls in the world. Angela would not say anything. We'd walk out and she'd say, your dad is weird. I said, I know. So now I just want you to set aside the Easy Bake Oven and the Betty Big Doll. I don't want you to worry, I did end up getting them. Because I don't want you to be concerned the rest of the talk. So you can go ahead and turn the next one. But that year we went to Mexico as usual, and that year my dad had picked up an old motorhome, and he had gutted the inside and created a place for us to sleep. He had a little propane stove, he had a generator, and he's ready to head for Mexico. So the moment his vacation started, and it was usually around January 15th, my mother had that motorhome stocked with food and clothing. She always brought clothes to give away to people that might need it. And away we went. And that year, we drove, my dad was so thrilled with the motorhome that we drove all the way down to the border of Guatemala. And there was a river that went, that was between Mexico and Guatemala. I can't remember its name right now, but it stands for Howling Monkeys. You can go ahead and turn the next one. This was the border. I'm standing in, I've got the hat on, and my brothers, they have their butterfly nets. One of the things we did while we were there is we collected insects, and then we'd turn our insects into 4-H at the fair. And the river was so amazing. It had beautiful parrots, and it had turtles and iguanas. It was mesmerizing. And that night, usually my dad would just pull over wherever we were at, and that's where we'd camp for the night. So that night, we pulled over under this bridge. So you can go ahead. And you can't see this picture very well, but under the bridge, not very far, was a little lean-to. Just a very small little shack that had been put together with with just whatever they could find. And there was a family of 10 children that lived in this little shack. And that night, my mom, she would bring these pillowcases full of clothes that she would collect throughout the year. And she said, do you need any of the clothes to this little family? My parents both spoke enough Spanish to kind of get by. And they were just thrilled. They took all the clothes. And you can't see very well, but the two little children that are actually wearing clothes they had put on those clothes that my mom had given them, and they were down at the river. And I was down playing in the river. That's me in the black, my brother's standing. But there's a little girl right by me, by the rock. And when I met her, we became just like the best friends, just immediately. And it was strange, I don't know how to explain it, but we were able to communicate perfectly. Even though I didn't know very much Spanish and she didn't know very much English, some weird phenomenon, we had our own language. It was just so strange. But we just immediately loved each other. And that night, they shared their tortillas with us, and we shared the chicken and vegetable dinner that my mom had gotten at the market and cooked with them. And she showed me her little mat that she slept on, and I showed her my really awesome bed. And she was just in awe. She wasn't jealous. She was just in awe of, wow, this is so cool. And she said, you have a house on wheels. And anyway, the next day we were leaving, and the timing chain on the engine broke. And these are the days when you don't have a cell phone, there's no pay phone, there's no credit cards. But my dad is very resourceful, so he hitchhiked back up to Mexico. He brought a lot of tools with him. He needed to find 2 sprockets and and something else that he needed, a gasket. And so while he was hitching up, he had to hitchhike up, and he didn't know if he was going to have to go all the way to Texas or not. He left my mom there with 3 little kids, and we weren't even scared at all. It was we just thought this was the most normal thing in the world. And so during that time that my dad was gone, he was gone for about 5 days, I spent every day with this little girl. And except the time that I had school, because my mom, she made sure that we had school for 2 hours a day. And so I was so excited because she said she had to do her chores. Well, cool, she doesn't even have a room. How hard can that be to do her chores? My chores were making my bed and putting my clothes away. So that for the next 5 days, I spent with her. In the morning, we'd get the water. She had to get the water for the cleaning. She had to get the water for drinking and for washing. That took the entire morning. She had to boil the water to get it clean. Then she did the washing. The washing took all afternoon. And I said, do you go to school? She says, no, we can't go to school. We have to do this. We can't go to school. And, I showed her like my books that I had and my pencils, and she's just like, it was so awesome. They didn't have any of that. And she said, can you come and talk to my parents? They want to talk to you. So I went, and her parents were there. They had a brand new baby. It was about 2 months old. Had all this hair, and I love hair. And these big brown eyes that were just incredible. And they all stood in like a circle, and they said, and they were crying. And the father, who spoke pretty good English, said, we would like to give you our baby. Now, I'm 7. And I'm thinking, I don't think this is going to go well with my dad. My dad isn't big on babies. And so anyway, I didn't say anything, but I said I'd talk to my parents about it. So I went back to my mom and said, they want to give us their baby. And she's like, we're not taking their baby. And I'm like, please, Mom. They say that this is their only chance. Their only way they can make it is if they can have this baby and go to school in America. They can help the whole family. You've got to let me take this baby. She says, well, we'll talk to your dad when he gets back. I knew that meant no. Anyway, so every day they asked me. And they cried. And I was just so sad. I was so heartbroken for them because they loved this baby. And they felt like that was their only chance. That was their only hope, was to have education. Well, my dad got back. He had been able to find 2 of the sprockets that he needed. He still hadn't been able to find the one piece that he needed. So what he did is he found a sign, an old, it was a cigarette sign. It was made of cardboard and some kind of a plastic material, and he actually just cut the gasket out and used that with the engine. And I don't know how he did it, but he got the engine back working. And at least enough to get us to Texas. And I was so heartbroken. I did not want to leave this little family. And I just begged my dad. He said, no, we have some contacts in Mexico. We will let them know of this family's need, but we can't take the baby. Well, I cried and cried and cried when we left. And after endless crying, I remember sitting there with my mom and was very, very quiet, and my dad said to me, now I want to ask you some questions. He said, Shelley, that's what he said when he's mad. He wasn't mad though. He said, Shelley, is an easy bake oven a want or a need? It's a want. I got it. I now had got that. He said, what about Betty Big Doll? Is that a want or a need? I said, that's a want. He said, why are you the luckiest little girl in the world? And I said, because I have clean running water and I get to go to school every day. He said, you're right. And you know what? You have learned that at 7 years old, and there will be many, many people who will never learn that. And he was right. And the people in this room, it's as true today as it was back then. The people in this room, we are all the luckiest people on this planet. We have clean running water. We have access to education. We have so many opportunities. The last day that I left this little girl, she said to me, don't ever forget me. And I said, I won't, and I never have. And my life changed that day, because every opportunity that is there, I take it. I take it for me, and I take it for her, because she wasn't able to. I have to tell you, this award means a tremendous amount to me, very personal, and I thank you so much.
We could invite President Holland just to give a few quick remarks. I appreciate that.
Well, I hate to say anything after that. That was so moving and a moment of inspiration and instruction for us all. I'm really genuinely sort of tongue-tied now to know what to say at this point, except to pay tribute to the woman we're all here supporting. She's a remarkable lady. I can tell you she's come into the cabinet at UVU and made an immediate impact, especially when she's biting Ian. So the biting has continued. It was a wonderful thing to be able to elevate Michelle to a vice presidency here, and that's in the spirit of why I'm here today. I'm here for two reasons. One is I love what I see before me, what's happening on this campus, and what Ann is doing. And this is the very thing that a few years ago we said as a cabinet, and I said personally, I wanted to see more of happening on this campus, which is bringing women together in ways that we were doing so much already to deal with women in crisis and women in difficulty, and that's such a beautiful and important and urgent thing that we continue to do and that we value. But we wanted to do things more affirmational, things that would be more taking us towards the positive side of women's lives and contributions. And boy, this is so wonderfully on display here. And then the second reason is I am a Michelle Taylor groupie. I've watched her since I've been on this campus, what she's done in her role in student affairs and what she's done now moving into her vice presidential role. And she's such a great voice for the students and for women and for causes like the ones she's described here today. I've always known this side of Michelle, and I've seen it on display, but this was a real revelation today to see how deeply embedded it is in her core that she learned this lesson so early, and that she learned it from a great figure like her father, which says there is still hope for men out there too in all of this. And so, Michelle, thank you for your words today, and more importantly, thank you for your life, your contribution here at the university and across the world, and making such a monumental difference in the lives of so many people in so many places. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. A few semesters ago, I had the opportunity to work with Michelle as a mentor. And since before that, I've been debating whether would I be able to finish and get my degree. I was kind of nervous. I wasn't too sure whether I will be able to do it or not. But mentoring in her class and hearing her share her experience and what she went through when she was doing her PhD, I looked at her and I thought, if she's standing up there and she's able to do all that, I'm sure I can do the same thing. And so, Michelle, thank you so much. You've been an inspirational to a lot of women, and especially for me, I thank you a lot, and I look up to you. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, President, for your remarks. We recognize that some of you may have to leave early to go back to work, so you'll be excused if you need to leave. I just wanted to share a little bit about how we celebrate Women's Day in Fiji. On Women's Day, it would be yesterday that they celebrate Women's Day. And while living back home, usually that's the day that a lot of the companies support this holiday. They would let the women have a big lunch, or they would send them to play golf, whatever the interest. The women will decide what they want to do. And then the company will pay for them to have that day off and just celebrate and open up the office so that they can do whatever they want to do. And it's when I saw that, I thought, that's such a wonderful thing. But I was a mom then. I didn't know how it would benefit me. But now that I'm living here, I really miss that. And so today I would like to just encourage you all to go out and just reflect on that. Reflect on how women have impacted our campus. Reflect on how women in your life have, what they've done in your life to make you who you are today. Because I think that is very powerful. And if we celebrate that today, it will benefit us and also benefit the women that we serve with or we work with. And today, happy Women's Day. I have the privilege to introduce our guest speaker today, who Lindsay Kite and Lexi Kite. Lindsay and Lexi are 20-year-old identical sisters with PhDs in the study of media and body image from the University of Utah. Lexi and Lindsay have a passion for helping girls and women recognize and reject harmful messages about their bodies and what beauty means and look like. They started the nonprofit organization Beauty Redefined 5 years ago to take back beauty for girls and women everywhere through their website, social media, and most prominently, through regular speaking engagements in both secular and religious settings for tens of thousands of people all over the country. Lindsay and Lexi.
take it.
I'll take it. What was that? We need it for the camera. Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, wait.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. We're really grateful to be able to speak to you. We have not spoken at Utah Valley University, so this is our first time, and we're grateful for that opportunity. Thank you for that introduction as well. We want to tell you that today, we wrapped up 10 years of college on this research last year, and we are so glad that we're done with college. You will feel really happy when you are too. But we want you to know that this topic, talking about body image, is incredibly important for women, for society in so many ways. We're not just talking about something fleeting. We're not just talking about how to feel more beautiful, but this really gets to the heart of how we can unite women, how we can help women progress in really powerful ways. So we're going to start out, we're speaking tonight, we're the keynote address tonight, and so we want to do something a little bit different today, and we want to share our story about how we got here. And this story will symbolize some of the research that we have come to over the last 10 years that really can help women gain more empowerment and body positivity in a real way. So I'm going to share a journal article of Lindsay's, but we are identical twins that have shared identical experiences, so I bet I have this same article in my journal. It says, last night, I tried on my old pants from Christmas of senior year, and they are way too big. This was 10 years ago, by the way. I distinctly remember wearing them and feeling pretty good about myself at choir practice, and now I can't imagine ever fitting into them or ever feeling good. I've gotten more compliments than I can count, and it feels so good, even though I don't feel so great about myself. I hope that eventually changes. Now, what we see here and what we've come to find in all of this research is that so many times we are sold to ourselves as bodies in need of fixing. Women are sold to men and women are sold to women as just parts, and that our happiness and our success and our ability to be loved will come when we fix our parts, from the roots in our hair down to our toenails and every inch of us in between. And what we know is that that is not true. Body positivity cannot come from fixing the outside. You will not be empowered with a breast augmentation. You will not be happier with your relationship when you lose weight, because it just doesn't work like that. It turns out that when we fix the inside, when we fix our thinking, everything in our lives changes, and we can be so much happier for it. So I want to talk to you about how Lindsay and I kind of came to this. 10 years ago, we were freshmen. We were at Utah State University at the time. We've just worked our way down, and now we're here. It's great. 10 years ago, we were sitting in a classroom for journalists. It was a required class on media literacy. That's what we study. The ways media represents people and how that might affect our realities. And we were sitting in a class the first day, and we started hearing about how women were represented in media and how it was time to start questioning that, because they are engineered to look one specific way in media, and it's to sell a whole lot of products and a whole lot of insecurity back to us. And when we heard that, I got goosebumps and my heart pounded faster, and I felt truth. I felt truth testifying to me that what I was hearing was super powerful for my life. I got goosebumps knowing that this was something that I really needed to study in some way. And I didn't know how, but I wanted to make a difference in the world by talking to people about this information. I went home, talked to Lindsay about it. She felt the exact same way. We had a very twin-like experience where we felt we might have something bigger to do. And we were 18 and we didn't know how to get there. And I think we've come a long way since then. What we found is that more than anything, with all the media we're exposed to, the billions of images and messages that we're exposed to in our lives today, every bit of that is driven by money. It's driven by advertising. Except for NPR, PBS, and BBC, every image or message you see is driving profit, and it's usually advertising dollars. And we have got to be so well aware and so critical of exactly what it is we're viewing, because it's selling something. Most stuff isn't just out there to help you feel better about yourself. It's there to drive profit, and they'll do that in any way they can. So we love this quote. It's from The Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf. She says, "Consumer culture is best supported by markets made up of sexual clones, men who want objects and women who want to be objects, and the object desired, ever-changing, disposable, and dictated by the market." And we 100% know that to be true. What we know is that every single day, media makers, industry executives, and every other power holder in media, is coming up with new flaws for women. They do that by giving us new ads every day. Dove has a new ad out. It's not even that new. It's been out for a year or two, where you are getting an armpit makeover because our armpits are so disgusting, women, that we have got to use this new deodorant that will make us want to rip off our sleeves and show our armpits to the world. They're not gross anymore. Ugh, just another new flaw. Eyelash extensions are a new thing. A few years ago, we didn't think that our eyelashes had to be fuller and thicker just to look normal. When you flip the script on that kind of stuff, you realize how maybe sexist that is. Can you imagine men being sold that their eyelashes have got to be thicker and longer and sexier? It's just not a thing, and we can think that about a lot of things in media. So what we like to talk about is how this generation, how every person in this room really, is growing up in a world unlike any other in the history of the world. And it doesn't feel so different to us because we've grown up surrounded by media, by TV, and for younger people, being surrounded by easy access to the internet at all times of the day and wherever they are. This creates a whole new definition of normal for us. This chips away at the perception of what normal, healthy, regular women's bodies look like and creates a new definition for us. And that's done through all these types of media that come to be invisible to us. We don't even recognize how many messages are being sold to us because this is just the world we live in, and this is how we've all grown up. Studies today show that adolescents are exposed to about 7.5 hours of screen media every day, but that's only counting one screen. That's not talking about when you're scrolling through Instagram while you're watching TV or watching a movie. And if you think about it, that number is exponentially higher because we are constantly looking at 2 screens at once or listening to music while we're watching TV or scrolling through Facebook or anything else. This does play a role in how we perceive our own bodies. It plays a role in how we perceive other people's bodies as well. And on top of that, we're exposed to about 3,600 advertisements every single day. And that number sounds outrageous to us because we do not perceive that we are being sold anything. These come from every possible angle you can imagine. Even just the signs we walk past, the billboards we drive past. They're largely selling things to women because women are the money power holders in the household. Women might not make as much as men in every household, but they do control 86% of the money sold in every household. And that is why so much of this advertising is directed to women. It's selling women flaws. It's selling women body anxiety. If they can convince every one of us to be so anxious about our bodies and feel that we are defined by our appearance, and in order to be happier and healthier and more desirable, we can fix these things with the products and services they sell us, then we will spend the rest of our lives and so much money and so much time and energy trying to seek fulfillment in all the wrong places because these are the messages that are sold to us over and over again. When we are exposed to media, we see one type of beautiful. There's nothing wrong with this type of beautiful. What we see here is very thin women over and over again. They have been augmented in all the right places if they don't already have those curves. They are often young, and if they're not young, then they go through every procedure they can think of in order to maintain looking young for the rest of their lives. We see largely white women represented as beauty ideals in media. When we see these ideals, this creates a new perception of normal for us, and young girls today grow up being constantly exposed to these types of images. We're not just talking advertising, we're talking entertainment media. The TV shows you watch, the movies you watch, any type of commercial, any type of media imagery you see is engineered to sell products to make these images look totally normal, and the rest of us feel subpar and abnormal. There's nothing wrong with thinness. There's nothing wrong with being naturally thin or even striving to become thinner, but the problem is when we all believe that thinness is the key to happiness, success, and desirability in relationships, then that is what the problem is. We are striving for something that may not be healthy for every person and killing ourselves in the process. When there are celebrities who don't already fit these beauty ideals, they're often very much bullied into fitting those ideals in popular media. So you see examples like these women, Kelly Clarkson, Jennifer Hudson, and Jessica Simpson. They all rose to fame not just because they were the most beautiful women on the screen, but because they had talents to share. And specifically, these women were all singers, and that's how they became famous. But they didn't have bodies that looked like those ideals that we see, those thin ideals. And so on the covers of these magazines, they were bullied right into it. Size 16 to size size 6, how she finally did it. And they'll do this over and over again to actresses and models who just don't look exactly like those thin ideals. And what do you think, what kind of message do you think that sends to young girls growing up who have bodies that look like those bodies you see up there? And they're told over and over again that they are abnormal, that they need to fix themselves in order to become acceptable. And the praise these women receive after dropping those pounds and making millions from Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and every other system you can think of tells them all that this is the key to happiness and success. We have to talk about these unreal ideals and some of the ways that they're done. And one of the most prominent ways that we see today is through photoshopping, is through digital manipulation of images. This is just one tool that's been on the market since about 1998, used really prominently since then. And it creates, again, a new definition of normal for us. We see someone who's naturally thin, and she's tall and has a very athletic body type. This is Keira Knightley. When she is advertising for movies over and over again, she gets a breast augmentation digitally. And she speaks out about this on occasion because it is not what she looks like. This message is that thin women have to also have large breasts. This is something that doesn't happen in nature nearly as often as it does on the screens that we see. We're told over and over again that naturally thin women with very large breasts are everywhere, when in reality, I can think of maybe a couple that I've ever known in real life that have that body type. Yet all the women who are naturally thin feel that they need to enhance those curves in order just to fit in, feel like a woman, feel normal. And this is something that we need to recognize and fight against. This is Gabourey Sidibe. She is an award-winning actress from Precious, and she's done a few other noteworthy things since then. And when she is featured on the cover of Elle magazine, she is digitally whitewashed. This is something that we see all the time with women in color in media. We talk about white ideals all the time. We call it beauty whitewashing. This is one thing that drives people to our website in droves because not a lot of people have done research on this subject. But what we have seen is that white ideals, Eurocentric ideals, drive billions of dollars worldwide of people bleaching their skin and also relaxing and straightening their hair, doing all kinds of things that are shown to damage your health, but supposedly to improve these female bodies in order to look more like white Eurocentric ideals. What we also see is the way health is represented also upholds these unreal ideals. What is scary to us in my research, I found that the #1 source of health information outside the doctor's office are these magazines you see up on the screen. Self, Shape, Women's Health, Women's Fitness, Oxygen, they all have the exact same cover every single month, and it looks just like that. Slim, Sexy Body, How to Get Hot in 5 days, all kinds of crazy headlines like that that are just recycled, duplicated over and over again. And this is health information? This is about fitness? Absolutely not. This is about objectification. This is about appearance, and that is it. So many people go to extremes to get that slim, sexy body and hurt their bodies in the process. They hurt them inside and outside, and their body image doesn't improve one bit. And so if we are following these types of sources of information to figure out how to improve our health and our family's health, since women are the purveyors of health to their families, then we've taken a really wrong turn. And our research shows how we can reclaim that and get a little bit closer to actual health and appreciating our bodies for all they can do rather than just what they look like on the outside.
So this word that is such a buzzword these days, it's really important to know it, objectification. The root word here, object. This is how we get to objectification that becomes so normal you can't even see it anymore. You watch any blockbuster movie, I guarantee you this happens in every movie. Any of your favorite women's magazines or women's TV shows, whatever it is, watch the camera tilt up and down that woman's body. Watch it zoom in on her parts. Watch the dialogue and the text revolve around what that woman looks like. Women get to largely only look one way in media. If they are represented as something lovable and positive, they look like that one form of beauty we've been talking about. And everything else is the fat, funny sidekick, you know? She doesn't get love, but she's the funny friend, you know? That's how this stuff happens. What this does is it teaches men to view women as pieces of women, as things to be looked at and consumed. And it teaches women, and it teaches girls, that we are parts to be judged, to be fixed, to be looked at, to be consumed. This is called self-objectification. This was a major part of my research, and it is so important to speak about, because in epidemic proportions, girls and women of all ages are facing self-objectification. What that means is, I could give a bunch of examples of what this looks like. Let's say you are walking down the street on a beautiful day. Let's say there are people, you're coming out of class. There are people walking in front of you, there are people behind you. Instead of thinking, I haven't talked to my mom in a minute, I should give her a call, or it's a beautiful day outside, look around. You're thinking, oh yikes, I have got to keep my skirt pulled down because I bet the people behind me are looking at me and they think my muffin top is showing, or oh, I really should have brushed my hair or washed my hair this morning because this looks disgusting. You see yourself in a mirror and you think, oh my gosh, what am I doing out? And what that is body shame. Body shame comes in all forms, but what happens is that what research shows us is a really terrible thing happening to girls and women. It halts our progress, our happiness, and our health in every way that matters. They do these studies with all sorts of women, especially college-aged women, where they'll have you take a math test or a reading comprehension test, or they'll have you go running or throw a softball or lift weights. The list goes on. And then they'll track your progress. They'll track how you do in any of these areas. And then they'll have you do that same activity, that same test, when there are other people around. And all of a sudden, the large majority of us suddenly feel like we are being looked at, regardless of whether or not we're actually being looked at. We are self-objectifying. Our identities are doubled. Not only are we trying to be as good as we can at whatever we do, because we live in a world that says, girl power, ladies, you can do whatever you want. That same world says, but guess what? You better look dang good doing it, or it doesn't count. And so we live our lives like this. We live trying to be as good at whatever we can do, but we make sure that we are looking good doing it. And so we live to be looked at, and our identities are literally doubled. And it gets in the way of our happiness, of our relationships, of our progress, and our health in every way that counts. Because those studies show that when you feel like you're being looked at, you cannot perform as well as you can otherwise in any area. Can you imagine what that's doing to girls and women everywhere? So Lindsay and I like to bring this up because we feel like Beauty Redefined is different. We feel like there are a lot of organizations out there that have really great intentions and that are doing good things, but so often they say this, oh, you are beautiful just the way you are. You feel bad about yourself? Stop, you're beautiful. And then they end it. And this is one of those times where we like to flip the script. Can you imagine an organization that is talking to guys about, how they are having low self-esteem, and they only went so far as to say, oh, but you are so handsome. You look good just the way you are, and then expect those guys to go out and just take over the world? No. We talk to guys about how, they're capable in so many other ways, and we have got to do the same thing to girls, because we are more than bodies to be looked at. And so what Beauty Redefined brings to the table is this very simple truth that can absolutely change your life. We are more than bodies to be looked at. We are more than just bodies to be looked at and judged and fixed at all times. And when you start to be able to see more, and after just this short presentation, I guarantee you'll see more than you ever have in media and in how much that hurts us and lies to us, but you'll also be able to see more in yourself and in other women and girls around you. But the one thing that we think is very different about Beauty Redefined is that our nonprofit shares strategies that are research-driven that will teach you how to be more, how you can be more than you've been led to believe you are, and stop letting that self-objectification absolutely halt your progress and stop you in your tracks in every way that counts.
Our dissertation studies showed us lots of things, but the most prominent thing we found is that most girls and women, and this is replicated in many other studies across the last decade and across the country and the world, most women are severely dissatisfied with their bodies. So we found that half of our participants in this study expressed that they were severely dissatisfied, and another 34% on top of that expressed that they were generally dissatisfied, overall dissatisfied with their bodies. So this question it revealed to us that not only was self-objectification happening in really rampant rates, and these women reported holding themselves back from all types of activities, including exercise, because they were too worried about what they looked like, we also found that just at all times throughout the day, they feel gross about themselves. They felt self-conscious. And if you can think about all of the things that women are holding themselves back from just because they feel dissatisfied with their bodies, we know that girls stop raising their hands in class starting in like 6th grade because they feel self-conscious of their bodies. We know that girls and women don't go into fields that they feel self-conscious in, that they've been told they're not good enough for, and that we are holding ourselves back from physical activity, from sporting events, from going out and even just being social in our lives because I have a zit on my chin, and so, I can't go out. We're told that in advertising. We're told that in every type of media, that it's perfectly normal to hold yourself back from doing anything that would otherwise enrich your life, just because you don't like what you look like at the moment. But what you look like does not define you. It doesn't have to hold you back from any activity. And in the real world, it just doesn't. And we have lots of stats to show that. What I like to talk about is swimming. Swimming was a really large part of both of our lives when we were growing up. We started in swimming lessons when we were 3 years old, and we started competitively swimming for a team in Idaho Falls, where we grew up, when we were just 8 years old. And we continued doing that until about age 16. But swimming revealed a lot of different experiences relating to body image. As you can imagine, this is a very body-conscious sport, just simply because of what you're wearing while you're doing it. And this was something that revealed itself in our lives really early on, starting just as early as we started on the swim team in 3rd grade. So what I want to talk to you about is this comfort zone. I was in a comfort zone in 3rd grade of feeling pretty good. I was a good swimmer, I exercised a ton, I tried to eat healthy, and I had a lot of friends and a great life. Lexi and I felt like we were capable of a lot of things, that we had been reinforced in a lot of different ways. Our identities were not defined by what we looked like. But this comfort zone started to change, and I want all of you to consider what your comfort zone is like. Most of you may be in that comfort zone right now. Maybe you have been in the past, and you will be in the future. I want you to think about what it feels like. Because our studies show most girls and women have a comfort zone that should not be comfortable to them. And we have become so accustomed to feeling negatively toward our bodies, feeling ashamed of our bodies, that that is the new normal. That so many girls and women go throughout their day feeling self-conscious, and that's just how it is. Scholars call it normative discontent, because that is how almost all of us feel. So we want to think about this comfort zone, how sometimes we're comfortable in a place that should not be comfortable for us. And what can happen to disrupt that is a disruption. This blue star up on the screen represents a disruption in your life. This is usually a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing that feels like a bad thing. One example that we like to use is when a woman has a baby. When she's ready for that baby and wants it, it should be a great thing in her life, right? But so many times, having a baby changes a woman's body, and it changes her perception of her own body as well. It destroys her relationship with her own body. So this disruption that should have been a good thing ends up being a really bad thing for the way she feels about herself. A disruption could be anything. It could be a health problem that you've had. It could be a comment that somebody makes about your body. It could be being bullied or being assaulted or abused. So many things can be a disruption in our lives. But what we've found through our research is that there are 3 different routes people can take when they deal with these disruptions. The first one is this number 3 route. This is the worst possible path that people can take when dealing with something hard that has happened in their lives. And this number 3 represents all those harmful coping mechanisms that are growing stronger every day, that we hear about constantly, especially for young women, but also continuing on into people's lives through their 80s and 90s. We hear experiences all the time. This number 3 represents harmful coping mechanisms like cutting, like disordered eating. Approximately 10 million women in the US are diagnosable as anorexic or bulimic, and another 25 million more are struggling with a binge eating disorder. This is very, very underreported. So we know that these numbers are low. We know that many, many women in this country are struggling and are driven to extremes because of body shame. We know that body shame isn't the only reason that people take to extremes like disordered eating, but we know it is a main cause. We know it is a very dramatic indicator of someone going to this extreme of disordered eating is because of body shame. And this stat really breaks our hearts. The number of children under 12 hospitalized due to an eating disorder went up almost 120% in that short time period, 99 to 06. This should be startling. Most of those were girls. About 92% of those were female children. And this is a largely female problem. We know that the numbers are getting worse all the time for boys and men, and that objectification is increasing for boys and men, particularly through fitness and health magazines. But we know that girls and women are consistently the main targets, and they will continue to be that as well. This disordered eating affects people in every aspect of their lives. And if you haven't struggled with it, I promise you that you know someone who has. And because of that, we need people to speak out. We need people to go to the National Eating Disorder Association, NEDA. Google that if you haven't ever been to that website. It'll help you diagnose whether or not you have an eating disorder. It'll help you provide resources for yourself and for other people. We have to speak out about this and normalize it so people aren't trapped in that silence and feel like they have to struggle on their own in this cycle that is absolutely an addiction. On top of that, we see that people turn to the extreme of cosmetic surgery more than ever before. Cosmetic surgery is up 446% in the last decade. This is a new thing that is changing the landscape of this world that we live in. It is changing the appearances of women today so that little girls growing up today and women growing older are unable to look to the people around them, especially here on the Wasatch Front, and see reality. This is a really harmful statistic that we know to be true where we are because Salt Lake City has been ranked the vainest city in the nation by Forbes magazine. That was done a few years ago, but the study has not been replicated to prove any differently. We know that Salt Lake City has more plastic surgeons per capita than any other city in the nation, including LA or New York or Miami, any of those places you would think would be a hotspot for plastic surgery. We know that people in Salt Lake City spend more on cosmetics and on beauty products, 10 times more than cities of comparable size, 10 times more than Oklahoma City, which is larger than us. So something's happening here that is driving people toward cosmetic surgery, and we know that there are a lot of factors that go into that, and we can go into that in the Q&A if you want to ask us more about that later. But there is pressure to change our bodies in order just to feel normal, in order just to feel like normal women. 92% of those procedures are performed on girls and women. Girls under 18 with just a signature from their parents, and those numbers are going up every single day. This is an extreme that people turn to often as a direct result of feeling body shame, and that represents that number 3, the worst possible way, because we sink deeper into body shame and use harmful coping mechanisms in order to feel okay in the moment. Also on that comfort zone, a disruption could lead you to maintain that comfort zone, to continue hiding and fixing parts of ourselves, because that is what shame does. Shame leads us to hide or fix the parts of ourselves that don't meet the ideal we believe in our own minds. That number 2 represents another statistic that we find really harmful, and that is that many girls and women are driven to being sedentary, to hiding themselves because they don't feel good enough to be out in public. The second leading causes of preventable morbidity and mortality are poor nutrition and physical inactivity. Obviously, body shame isn't the only reason this is happening in our country, but we know that it plays a large role because scholars show over and over again, research shows that a feeling of too fat to exercise is very prevalent among women, and that women who don't feel beautiful while they're exercising, they think they're too red or too sweaty or too jiggly or whatever it is, they don't want to be looked at while they're exercising, so they don't. And this leads people to hide in their own houses, to eat foods that don't do us any good, to overeat, to binge eat, out of a feeling of needing to cope and wanting to numb ourselves. This causes so many health problems that we know are going on in the country at 2 ends of the spectrum, both related to body shame. This comfort zone could also have a disruption that leads you higher, better than what you were before, and stronger than what you were before. And it sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Some disruption that happens in your life, something that might be a really bad thing, it shouldn't help you to be better, right? It couldn't help you to be stronger. But what research shows is that over and over again, this is true for people, that bad things do make people stronger and better and happier than they were before, and particularly in terms of body image. This disruption can be an enabling disruption with the right tools and the right resources that our research has identified that are innate to some people and can be learned. All of these areas can be improved.
So Lindsay didn't share this example from our swimming days, so I'm going to reiterate it for her. We're going to give you an example of how this enabling disruption can work, and I'll do it very briefly. Back when we were swimming and we were young and we thought, the whole world was ahead of us and we felt great about ourselves, this one day, Lindsay has reiterated this experience that she had in grade school when she came home from a swim meet and she was wearing her little one-piece racing suit, and she saw a dimple on her thigh. And it freaked her out. She thought that was so disgusting and so ugly. And she resolved that from that day forward, if she could just hold her little hand over that dimple in her thigh from there on out, that nobody would see it and nobody would judge her and she'd be okay. And I experienced the same thing, got us down this path where shame just started to creep in little by little. And over the years, the thing that stopped us from swimming finally, at age 16, was complete and utter body shame. We felt too uncomfortable in our bodies, and we were killing it at swimming, and we quit. And for many years, from 16 until we got into college, we didn't swim anymore because we felt too self-conscious. And so we just checked ourselves out of the game. We quit our #1 sport because of that.
And then something changed one day. I experienced a very enabling disruption that could have been something that pushed me down into that number 3 again, or kept me in that number 2 of just coping and staying in a really uncomfortable comfort zone. But what changed was I had a bunch of friends when I was at Utah State one day in the summer who decided they really wanted to go cliff jumping. And that was something that everyone was doing, and I thought it sounded fun too. But I literally had not put on a swimming suit for 5 years at that point because I resolved that that wasn't something I was willing to do. I didn't want anyone to see me like that. One day, my friends and I was dating a guy at the time who had never seen me in a swimming suit, and that added additional pressure onto that. I thought that might be a deal breaker, and I was very scared of that. And so many girls experience that today, and I can assure you that if he's a good guy, it's not a deal breaker. Turns out this one was a good guy. I didn't marry him or anything, but he was good. We went cliff jumping. I decided that because I had friends around and it was something I really wanted to do, we went. I put on a swimming suit for the first time, and I jumped in that water and swam all the way across that reservoir while everyone else was in tubes and in paddle boats because I could swim. And I cannot tell you the empowerment, the excitement that rushed over me when I jumped into that water for the first time in 5 years and realized that I was still powerful, that I was still capable, that it didn't matter what I looked like in my swimming suit. I was experiencing something that resonated with me on every level you can imagine. That was a disruption for me that could have been really harmful under the wrong circumstances, especially if I had just opted out and decided not to do it. But instead, it changed something in me, and it reminded me of who I was and what I was capable of. That became an enabling disruption because ever since that time, and that was several years ago, I have not missed an opportunity to go swimming since then. And it didn't matter who was there, it didn't matter who was watching, or what I looked like in my swimming suit. It was something that was incredibly fun, empowering, and has brought so much more exercise into my life than I had for those 5 years. I swim laps consistently. I do this all the time because it's something I love, and it's something that I feel amazing in. And this is because we are using our bodies as instruments instead of objects. The key to positive body image is using your body as an instrument. Instead of just decorating it, instead of treating it like an ornament for other people to look at, instead of just adorning your prison of living that you have to live inside, your body that feels like a burden, use it. Use it to do amazing things. Use it to improve your health, to help other people, to reach outside of yourself, instead of staying in this prison of being so selfish and thinking only of ourselves that media often leads us to do.
So this thing that Lindsay and I is just the main part of our research is this idea of body image resilience. This is about using pain, whatever pain you felt in your life, whatever thing has triggered you to experience ridiculous body shame and resort to extremes, or just keep you in a comfort zone that really sucks at the end of the day. That pain might be the exact thing you need to be the best, most powerful, most awesome version of you. To be the person that has more compassion for other people, more people than you realize that have experienced that same source of pain. So in our research, we've identified 4 sources of power that help us gain this body image resilience. We're going to go over those tonight at our keynote presentation, and we'd love if you were there for that. But for now, we want to have you reflect on a time in your life that was difficult for you. If you can read this, we want to take 1 minute. Reflect on a particularly difficult experience or time when your perception of your body changed in some way, like we talked about. Consider how that experience helped you grow or change for the better in ways you may not have been able to without that experience. If you could just take 1 minute and think about how you are stronger because of some hard time you experienced that had to do with your body. We want for one person to be able to share this in a few moments. But for now, if you could take 1 minute and think about this, really take this seriously and think about this, you will be able to identify ways that you coped that were powerful, that were helpful for you, or that you could do better next time. And we'll go through some of those.
Let's take 2 minutes so we can get some really good experiences going. Starting now.
That in the course of our research, especially our PhDs over the last 4 years, we have been able to identify 4 sources of power that will really bring us to this place of body image resilience. What we found is that there are some girls and women who feel pretty good about themselves, and we looked at the resources and the power that they call upon to get to that point. We also tested out strategies that work, that get people to this place where they realize they're more than a body and they can change their lives. And it comes in these 4 sources of power. mental power, physical power, spiritual power, and social power. And we will be talking about these in detail tonight because whether or not you have these sources of power innately, everybody can learn them. Everybody can use tried and true research-driven strategies that we share at Beauty Redefined that can get us to this place. I want to use the example that Lindsay just shared about cliff jumping after she felt so self-conscious in a swimsuit. What we know is that she called upon 4 sources of power that changed her life in that one instant that she said, okay, fine, I'm gonna go. I don't care that this might be a deal breaker for my boyfriend, that I'm so self-conscious in a swimsuit. This is what she did. She called upon her mental power to say, hey, maybe I need to critically think about this. How am I keeping myself from jumping in the water and going in the water that I love? What is it that's making me think that I can't do that I'm not worthy of being able to experience my body? She called upon that mental power to really critically think about that experience. Physical power, this one's pretty evident. She experienced her body as an instrument instead of an object. And the second you do that, self-objectification flies out the window. The second you decide, it's okay that I'm really sweaty and that I'm jiggling or whatever it is, then your life changes and you experience your body as an instrument and your body image resilience goes through the roof. Lindsay was able to call upon spiritual power because, like she said, when she jumped in that water and actually swam across that lake, she felt a feeling that was greater than her that said, this is for you. You are not just a body, you are more than a body. And she felt it spiritually. And I know that if you identify with some form of spirituality, you know what that truth feels like for you. A lot of times it makes your heart pound faster, makes you want to cry sometimes. You get goosebumps. You feel that truth in different ways, but that is truth for you. And being able to use your body physically can bring up that spiritual power by tapping into a source beyond your own. And finally, social power. Not only did Lindsay's boyfriend not break up with her, he still loved her, so that was a good form of social power to use. But she had friends that said, you're great, like, don't worry about it, come, have fun. She had friends that didn't judge her. And she was able to talk to me and talk to our mom and other people about that shame and kind of break the silence on it and get that out there. She called upon these 4 sources of power to change her life in an instant, and we can all do that when we face disruptions.
So let's break that silence today. When we are able to open up and talk to other people about it, it takes the power out of that shame that so many of us experience. So many times we think we're the only one. We think we're isolated in this little bubble, that we're the only ones who don't want to do certain activities, or that we're the only ones who feel a certain way that holds us back from anything. And it is not true. I promise you it is not true. Any way you feel about your body or that you feel about yourself in general, there are other people that feel the exact same way, and you could benefit by talking to each other about it, by sharing those experiences. And one way that we really love to do that at workshops is to invite you in the audience, even just a couple of people, to share your experience. If you're brave enough to break that silence here in this room with a bunch of people who are open and welcoming and loving, I can already feel that in this room. It's a warm environment to be able to tell something in. And we want you to talk about a disruption that you've had, something that changed in your life that made you feel differently about your body, and then how you were able to cope with it. We would love to hear positive experiences of coping positively, using those 4 sources of power, but we can also hear experiences where maybe you didn't use those 4 sources of power, and how you could have, how we can all cultivate those skills or tap into the ones that are innate to us, that are already strengths that we have. Is there anybody who'd be willing to share their experience, even just standing up where you are?
Or even sitting down where you are. I know it's scary, but if anybody is willing, we would even just take one example of somebody that wanted to share with us.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You can come up here if you want.
Yeah. You can even have this mic. Do you want it? Thank you.
All right. My experience is when I was a little girl, I was brought up in the poorest province of Fiji. And so we were far away from the hospital. So, and when you live in third world country, live on a farm, and so we go out and my dad, when I was young, made us go and plant pine. We live right on this hilltop, and so he wanted all that hill to be covered with pine trees. So I go with them, and they had this plant that usually cuts our leg if you don't have long pants. And because I was raised in the village, girls, you can't wear long pants. So I have scars on my legs. And growing up, I was so conscious about that. And then when you brown skin, when you have cuts on your legs, it leaves a marks on it. It leaves a really dark, nasty marks on your legs. So I have all these marks on my legs. My senior year in high school, I always go with long skirt. Got to the city, I wear long pants. So in the city, I was so self-conscious about my legs, and I never wanted to wear anything up to my knees. It has to be way beyond my knees. And then my cousin, who was brought up in the city, never lived in the village, went to England with her family, came back, and she told me one day, "I wish I have your legs." And I turned to her and I said, "What?" She said, "You have such a beautiful legs. They're so, look at my legs and look at yours. Yours is just perfect. And the color of your legs." And from then on, I thought, whew, and she's the cousin that I admire because she's lived overseas and she's good, she's smart, and I thought, wow, if she thinks that my legs are beautiful, then I have a beautiful leg. And from then on, I'm always proud of my leg. So, yeah.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I think what you experienced there was some serious social power to be able to, whether or not you shared that pain of your legs, you had somebody that could open up to you and say, "You're beautiful, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, you're not abnormal." And that social power can be so powerful for us. So if you have something that you need to talk about, something you're self-conscious about, it's okay. You can say it out loud and somebody can help validate you and get you out of that rut you're stuck in where you just think there's something so wrong with you. I love that. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have an experience that they would want to share? And it's okay if you don't. We don't want to prevent anyone from sharing if there's anyone who's secretly really excited. No? Okay. I want to share with you this entry from my journal. This was in 2007. Lexi and I had just barely moved to Salt Lake to start our master's program at the University of Utah. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to do with it. We were starting in the communication program, and I was really nervous. I really felt like, I left everything I knew in Logan, and I wasn't sure if it was a good thing for us. But I decided to take some time to be quiet, to cut out media, to cut out all these other messages that would be going through my head, and I just decided to stop and think and try to figure out if this is what I should be doing. And I got this overwhelming feeling that I was doing what I should be doing. And this is what I wrote in my journal. "I know this is going to be a hard but amazing time in my life. I can feel it right now. Lots of big things are going to happen, both academically and spiritually. I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't even know what exactly that will entail. Definitely something to do with helping people to become more critical media consumers, to question what they see in media, and understand why it is that way, especially how women are portrayed. If we can forget how inadequate, fat, dumb, and jealous we feel, and concentrate on serving others and improving the world will be a much better place, and women and their families will be so much more fulfilled and so much happier." This was something that really overwhelmed me, and I felt like there was something I could do about this, rather than just tearing apart media, rather than just pointing out the bad things in the world. There were ways to help people, and I knew that Lexi and I together through our research could help to identify those strategies and skills and teach them to people in really public ways. And one of the ways we've been able to do that is through Beauty Redefined. We started this organization back in 2009. So it's been going for 5 years. We got our 501c3 nonprofit status 2 years ago. And we, since then, have been able to try to use our social power the best ways we possibly could through tons of media interviews, through sharing things publicly, especially through social media. We even got a billboard campaign up in Utah from Logan to Provo. We got 12 billboards up 3 summers ago. And that was something that was really exciting to kind of get us started and to get us out there. We share messages like you are capable of much more than looking hot. We feel like that is one of the most important messages that we share because it flies in the face of every other message that women hear. And we're really grateful to be able to try to use that social power with the help of other people's social power and their circles of influence in order to spread these messages to people who really need them. We wake up pretty much every single day with an email from somebody who said, "I saw some random link that somebody tweeted or was on their Facebook page that was to your site, and I read all night long. I read everything I could find on your website, and I feel like something has changed in me, and I'm grateful for that." And those messages are the ones that keep us doing what we're doing. We are not fully funded. If anyone's interested, we are looking for donors. But we do this 24 hours a day because of our passion for women, for helping women to be all that they can possibly be. We've had a couple of exciting things go on in the last few days, really.
Yeah, we have this latest post up on our website is how to teach modesty, if you subscribe to that ideology, in a more powerful, healthy way for girls and women. We posted this on our website, it went viral, and then Upworthy, do you know that site? They have like millions and millions of followers. They grabbed our image and posted it, and last I checked on this screenshot, it had 33,000 likes and 17,700 shares. And it was reached by millions of people at the end of the day. And also, Tegan and Sarah, does anybody know who Tegan and Sarah are? They're musicians and they're pop stars right now and they're really awesome. We love them. They're identical twins and they found out about Beauty Redefined and decided they wanted to help us too. We sell sticky notes with our billboard images on them that people put on like public bathroom mirrors or magazines that they don't like that share positive messages. And Tegan and Sarah last week, this happened last week, by the way, on the same day. Tegan and Sarah posted one of our sticky notes, "You're capable of great things, and I'm using Beauty Redefined sticky notes to remind you," they said. "You are capable of much more than looking hot," is what that one said. And on Instagram, when I took that screenshot, it had 5,000 likes and lots of comments. And so in this one day, using social media, the new form of activism, we were able to reach just so many people with our positive messages. Tegan and Sarah posted this on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and they reach millions of people alone. So we have found that just sharing a simple positive message by turning media on itself, and instead of letting it hurt us, we share positive messages that change other people's lives. It has been the most powerful thing we could do. So we encourage you to do that. We love this quote from Naomi Wolf. "While we cannot directly affect the images, we can drain them of their power. We can turn away from them and look directly at one another. We can lift ourselves and other women out of the myth." And we absolutely believe that to be true. We believe we have more power than we can even fathom. And when we can turn away from the self-objectification and get to a place of body image resilience, the whole world changes. So we would hope that today you learned a little bit more about how you can see more in media that hurts you and turn away from it, how you can see more in yourself and other people, and how you can be more, how you can really become more than you have been if you've been stifled in any of these ways. And we know that that is Beauty Redefined. Thank you so much for being here, and we'd hope that if you liked this presentation, you'd come tonight and bring somebody else so that they could hear it too. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm Tamara Harutsunova. I'm an international student, and I'm from Armenia. My major is business management, but I'm not here to introduce myself. Today, I am going to introduce Julie Nance. So Julie Nance is Julie is a biology secondary education major and president of the Science Association of Women Club at Utah Valley University. She will graduate spring 2015 and be spreading her love of science to young people in her classroom. As club president, she has worked since last fall to build up the club that had dwindled to nothing at the time she came on. Her focus has been on implementing programs and achievements to get women having fun with science, building friendship with each other, and getting to support they need to succeed. She understands that when women band together and support one another, they are more successful than apart. She has enjoyed collaborating with many other clubs and organizations on campus, which is how she wound up speaking in front of all of us today. Julie Nance.
Hello, thank you for everyone who happened to still be here. Just getting our things set up really quick. But I love Beauty Redefined. I'm totally geeking out about the fact that they're here. So I was really excited to kind of present this from kind of a science angle. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish today. So science, what scientists do. Obviously, they observe stuff around them, then they make a hypothesis, and then they test it and measure it. But how can this relate to beauty? How can you measure beauty? It's kind of subjective. But scientists are really kind of good about trying to come up with ways to measure things that maybe shouldn't necessarily be measured. So one way they did is they actually measured, okay, well, waist to hip ratio, maybe that's how you measure beauty, and how males rate a good mate. So maybe it's biological. Maybe those with, I don't have a pointer, but this N7 in the middle, bottom, they did a bunch of studies actually where they asked a bunch of males which they would prefer, which was the most beautiful, which was the most healthy, and which would be the best mate. And they did lots of studies, and everyone pretty much picked N7, the most slender and the smallest waist to hip ratio. Okay, so that seems kind of conclusive. It's biological. You're better reproductive health if you have that. However, there is a problem with this. Like they were saying about the media invisibility, it's also invisible sometimes to scientists as well. So they were only looking at westernized cultures and not taking into account how much culture plays into this. The bigger problem, though, is where do you find a culture that hasn't been exposed to media and westernized culture? So that's really difficult. So what they actually did, they did find a couple very deep in the jungle in Tanzania, in Africa, and then also in a protected national park in Peru. So we have indigenous tribes, and they showed these figures to the males in these tribes, and guess what? It was not a factor. They chose the healthiest, the most beautiful, the best mate was those figures on the top, where they were heavier and their ratio was actually higher. So, and this one was really interesting. So they actually studied 3 groups in this national park. One that was the most protected, really deep in the jungle, not a lot of outside influence. Then they went a little further, just outside of the national park, and tested that group. And then another one, which was on a trading route, and they had been pretty westernized by that point. And they realized that, let's see, I don't think I have the data on this one, but as you move out, the more westernized you got, the thinner their preference became. Sorry, I don't know if I did that or.
You need to speak more directly.
Okay, sorry, my bad. So it really is cultural, and we need to remember that, just like they were pointing out. Did anybody watch the Oscars? So Lupita, she gave this really beautiful speech at a award ceremony afterward. If any of you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you go look it up. It was awesome. She said that this is something her mother would always say to her. You can't eat beauty. And she was really confused about what that meant. You can't, it doesn't sustain you. She finally realized what that means is it's not something you can acquire or consume. And I'd like to add, it's not something you can buy. But all the companies out there, like they were pointing out, would have you believe it is something that you can buy and that you should buy. But she said, get down to the deeper business of being beautiful inside. There's no shade to that beauty. She talked a lot about how she was trying to lighten her skin, and she would pray to God and that she would wake up lighter skinned. But there is no shade or shape or size or weight in that beauty, that inner beauty. So when I first was preparing for this, I did the most scientific thing possible, and I posted a question on Facebook for all my friends to respond to. So I asked them, what makes a person beautiful? And all their responses kind of fell into these categories of being compassionate, caring for other people, having confidence. If you have confidence, then you are beautiful. My favorite was when they were at peace enough to be themselves. That was my brother said that. He's a stud. And then just personality. It was really interesting. Not a single person said anything about physical appearance. So that was good. And then everyone is beautiful. It's sad that they don't all see it. My favorite response, which is on the next slide, one of my best friends, asked her 12-year-old daughter this question. And her response was, oh, well, I haven't really thought about it. Isn't everyone beautiful? I was like, that's pretty phenomenal for a 12-year-old girl to be able to still say that. I know a lot of girls younger than that who don't think that way. But it's really true. And I think I unconsciously plagiarized this, actually, because I read your site a lot. But our bodies are instruments. They are not decorations for other people. They're to be used for us. So that's one I'm proud of. I'm very self-conscious about my body, but I do try to get out and do things. All these people are beautiful inside. And if we can realize that, then we will be much happier. And there's our little publicity. So I don't know how to click on this. Can someone click on that for me? Thank you so much. So because I'm a science geek, I had to show a really geeky video because this is something that is beautiful to me. And this is what makes all of us beautiful, because this is going on inside everybody's body. And that is why we are so amazing. We have these functional bodies that we can do so much with. And that is true beauty. If we can get it working. You have to log in if you do it, put mine in. Don't we love the internet at UVU? It always works perfectly. Maybe it will work and maybe it won't. Anyway, I recommend you go look it up. There's some videos called The Inner Life of the Cell. Those are awesome. And then this one was by the same company. Maybe we'll get it. That would be awesome. So these are scientific animation, and thank you all for being patient. Is that gonna work? No? Okay, we'll give up on it. Go look it up. It's really awesome. It showed like the inside of the body, and it showed all the bones being put together and the heart beating. It was really cool. So anyway, you are all beautiful because you all have a functional body, and be grateful for it. And I'm working on that myself. I almost came up and talked when they were asking for examples because I'm very self-conscious about my body, but actually last year about this same time, my boyfriend had the opportunity to take me river rafting, and that really scared me because what if I fell in and what if I get hurt? But actually the bigger concern was how dumb I'm gonna look when they try to pull me back in the boat. So I was really worried about that, but I was brave because I really wanted to do it, and it was a really good opportunity. And I did it, and it was so fun, and I didn't even fall in. It was great. Anyway, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day, and remember that you are beautiful.